Welcome back to our session on the science of sleep and consciousness, how rest becomes revelation. First, some mythic framing. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, and then let it go. Before we talk about neurons, brain waves, circadian rhythms, let's begin where science began, with wonder and curiosity. Long before there were EEG machines, there was myth. The ancients didn't speak of melatonin or REM cycles. They spoke of gods who dreamed worlds into being. They told us that Vishnu lies upon the cosmic ocean, his body resting on the serpent Ananta, infinite time itself. From his navel blooms a lotus. Brahma, from that lotus, begins to create again. When Vishnu sleeps, the universe dissolves into stillness. And when he exhales, galaxies return to light. That pulse, that creation, dissolution into creation again, that first cycle or rhythm is our first metaphor for sleep as sacred renewal. In the Vedas, this cycle is called Yoga Nidra, the sleep of yoga, where awareness rests inside itself yet never disappears. Now we move to translate that myth into modern scientific language, how your body, your brain, and your energy field reenact that cosmic, mythical rhythm every single night. And again, here's the paradox. Yoga Nidra feels like sleep, but it isn't unconscious. It's the place where sleep and awakening overlap, the Venn diagram, where awareness watches the body dream. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up to what the sages always knew and intuited, that rest is not a collapse into nothingness. It's an orchestration of astonishing intelligence, a nightly ritual of repair, integration, and rebirth. So think of this session as a bridge, half temple, half laboratory. We'll move from the poetry of Vishnu's breath to the physiology of your own breath, from the sacred story of cosmic rest to the measurable miracles happening beneath your own skin. So take one more slow breath in, and you can even whisper this with me. I honor the mystery that keeps me alive when I am at rest. I honor the mystery that keeps me alive when I am at rest. Now, let's begin to unfold what sleep really is and why the yogis, the poets, and the neuroscientists are all telling us the same thing. You don't rest because you're weak. You rest because that is how the universe remembers itself. Sleep is one of the oldest rituals on Earth. Every creature does it, from ants to whales to the great banyan tree that closes its leaves at night. It's built into the rhythm of existence itself. Inhale, exhale. Day turning into night. Summer turning into fall. Wake, rest. Yet, in our culture, we treat sleep as an inconvenience. We glorify exhaustion. We brag about burning out. We mistake productivity for worth. But the yogis would say, if you can't rest, you can't awaken. Because awakening, true awakening, requires enough stillness to hear what consciousness is whispering beneath the noise. Science agrees. At the Chopra Center, they found that when practitioners enter deep relaxation, the Yoga Nidra state, their bodies shifted from stress response to healing response almost instantly. Cortisol dropped, heart rate slowed, and the vagus nerve, that beautiful messenger between the body and the brain, began to hum in parasympathetic harmony. This is what we mean when we say Nidra unwinds stress. You're not just chilling out. You're reprogramming the nervous system to remember safety. You're telling the body it's okay to stop fighting. You're literally unwinding the granthis, the knots, the psychic knots, and allowing them to unfurl. In Ayurveda, this state is called Shanti, deep peace, the medicine of tamas when held in balance. Biology calls this homeostasis. Different languages, different tongues, same truth. Think back to the myth of Vishnu on the cosmic sea, asleep. That story wasn't random. It was a way of describing this very intelligence, that creation itself rests between two heartbeats, between the inhale and the exhale, that even God needs to exhale. Every night when you fall asleep, you reenact that myth. You dissolve into darkness, not as an escape, but as a return. Your consciousness withdraws from the outer world just as Vishnu does, and your inner Brahma, your creative mind, the creator, blooms again in dreams. It's not just poetic exaggeration. Neuroscience has confirmed that when you enter REM and deep sleep, the brain literally rehearses creation. Neural connections rewire. Memories are integrated. Cells regenerate. The glymphatic system, your brain's built-in cleansing river, flushes out toxins and stress hormones, including amyloid, which is the same compound linked to Alzheimer's. In other words, sleep cleans your consciousness. When you skip sleep, you don't just feel tired. You're interrupting a sacred cycle of renewal. Even one night of sleep deprivation can change the expression of over 700 genes, the ones that regulate immunity, metabolism, and inflammation. You literally become a different person. That's why the ancients call sleep a little death. Not because it was frightening, but because it was a rehearsal for surrender. When you sleep, you let go of control. You allow the universe to breathe you again. And here's the secret most of us were never taught. You don't always have to be awake to be conscious. Yoga Nidra shows us that awareness never actually sleeps. Even as your body surrenders, something deeper, the witness, the self, remains luminous. That is what the Upanishads call Turiya, the fourth state. It's what neuroscience calls the theta-delta bridge, where brain waves slow to the rhythm of dreaming, yet self-awareness flickers gently, like a candle that refuses to go out. And that's the landscape we'll explore next. The layers of consciousness, the brain's architecture of rest, and how every descent into sleep is a pilgrimage home. So, before we go deeper, take a breath. Feel your own pulse, that quiet ocean under your skin. You are already part of Vishnu's dream. You are the dreamer, and you are the dream. Sleep isn't a single event, it's a symphony. 4 distinct movements, each one a different octave of consciousness. The yogis mapped them as Jagrat, waking, Svapna, dreaming, Sushupti, deep sleep, and Turiya, pure awareness. Modern neuroscience calls them beta, alpha, theta, and delta, maybe with a hint of gamma woven through the score. We'll walk through this temple, this symphony together. The first stage is the threshold, alpha waves. As you first begin to relax, your brain waves slow from beta, which is the frequency of focus and thinking, into alpha, the rhythm of daydream and creativity. It's like twilight for the mind, not fully awake, but not yet asleep. This is the moment that most people drift past unconsciously. In Yoga Nidra, this is the place we try to stay. We hover on that threshold where imagination opens and the nervous system begins to shift gears. Physiologists at the Chopra Center observed that within minutes of entering this state, participants' cortisol levels dropped by more than 20%, and oxygen consumption mirrored that of deep sleep, even though awareness still remained. Alpha waves are like a psychological, mythological, physiological permission slip for the mind. They say, you may rest now. The second stage is the descent, the theta waves. A few breaths later, you descend into theta, the dream river. Neurons fire in slow, undulating patterns between 4 and 7 cycles per second. Here, the body begins its nightly repair. Muscles release growth hormone. The vagus nerve orchestrates digestion and heartbeat, working as a messenger between the mind and the body. And the limbic system integrates emotional memory. Researchers at Harvard's Benson Henry Institute called this the relaxation response. It is the opposite of fight or flight. Blood pressure steadies, immune markers rise, and serotonin begins its quiet glow. Mythically, this is the dream of Brahma, consciousness painting reality on the canvas of subconscious. When we practice Yoga Nidra, we remain awake inside this dream. We become both the artist and the art, the painting and the painter. The third stage is the abyss, delta waves. The current carries you deeper. Delta, the ocean floor. Brain waves slow to 1 or 2 cycles per second. The prefrontal cortex quiets, and the sense of self dissolves. This is Sushupti, the state the Upanishads called causal sleep, the darkness pregnant with light. In deep delta, the lymphatic system opens wide, washing cerebral spinal fluid through the brain's tissues. It clears waste proteins, resets neurotransmitters, and literally rinses the day away. Studies at the University of Rochester show that this cleansing doubles in efficiency during delta sleep. You could say that the brain is trying to baptize itself nightly. And yet, something stays awake. EEG recordings of seasoned Yoga Nidra practitioners revealed a really interesting and rare pattern, that simultaneous delta and gamma activity, the mark of lucidity within deep sleep. Science calls that paradoxical coherence, but the sages called it turiya. Stage 4, REM and the return. Theta and beta with gamma flashes. So finally, the mind begins to stir again. REM, rapid eye movement, is the bridge back towards waking. Dreams unfurl. The hippocampus starts to sort memory, and the body rehearses future movement in micro twitches. Brain waves oscillate between theta and beta, punctuated by bursts of gamma, that frequency of insight. At the Chopra Center, sleep lab data showed that meditators in Yoga Nidra-like states maintained elevated gamma even after waking, evidence of integration rather than collapse. It's as if awareness followed you home, carrying the fragrance of the ocean, the smell of salt on your skin. So what does this mean for your students? Rest is not passive. Every night, consciousness travels this spiral, descending through form, dissolving into formlessness, and then re-emerging renewed. Yoga Nidra simply keeps the light of awareness on while the journey unfolds. The next time you practice Yoga Nidra, or the next time you guide someone else into stillness, remember, behind the closed eyes, billions of neurons are praying in slow motion. The body is naturally and miraculously doing what Vishnu does on the cosmic sea, breathing creation in and letting it rest. Every culture has tried to map what happens when we close our eyes. The yogis of the Mandukya Upanishad gave us the most exquisite map of all. Those 4 states of consciousness, Jagrat, waking, Svapna, dreaming, Sushupti, deep sleep, and Turiya, the witness that pervades them all. Modern neuroscience unknowingly confirmed what those sages already knew. Each state has a signature rhythm, a chemistry, a feeling tone, and yet through them all, one awareness endures. Jagrat, or waking awareness, includes beta and gamma. This is daytime consciousness, the mind outwardly engaged. Brain waves vibrate in the beta range, which is 13 to 30 hertz. Scanning, planning, solving, protecting. When you teach, drive, parent, move in the world, this is the state you live in. It's useful, but it's exhausting if never balanced. Chronically high beta keeps the amygdala on guard. It floods the body with cortisol. That's why we reach for coffee in the morning and collapse at night. The yogic invitation is not to demonize waking life, but instead to infuse it with presence. In Yoga Nidra, we teach the nervous system how to downshift without disengaging, to stay lucid even as activity softens. This is our waking, living life, but we must balance it with deep rest so that we have renewal. Svapna is dreaming, theta and alpha flow. When awareness turns inward, you enter Svapna Loka, the dream world. Here, imagination, memory, and intuition intermingle. In myth, this is Brahma's workshop, where reality is sketched and prototyped. Neuroscience shows the same. During REM sleep and light meditation, theta waves, 4 to 7 hertz, dominate, connecting the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. It's the creative dialogue between emotion and insight. Artists call it flow. Yogis call it pratyahara, the senses turning inward. When you guide visualization in Yoga Nidra, you're leading students consciously through Svapna, allowing dream intelligence to collaborate with awareness. Sushupti is deep sleep, delta stillness. Consciousness sinks into Sushupti, the dreamless ocean. Mythically, this is Vishnu's rest on the cosmic waters. Neurons fire so slowly, they almost seem silent. The ego self dissolves. Yet, paradoxically, life force is at its most vibrant. Growth hormone surges, immune cells replicate, the brain's lymphatic channels flush waste and inflammatory proteins. Researchers at University of Rochester actually call this the brain's night shift janitor. If waking is in the play and dreaming the rehearsal, deep sleep is the reset. In Yoga Nidra, you remain aware inside that reset. Awareness floating in delta like a moon on still water. And finally, Turiya, the fourth, the witness. The sages said there is a fourth, not a stage, but a field permeating them all. Consciousness, the silent witness of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Science can't quite measure it, but glimpses appear in EEGs of advanced meditators. That simultaneous blend of high frequency gamma, the 40 plus hertz, and the signature of insight with the slow delta of deep sleep. Dr. Richard Davidson's lab at UW Madison observed this paradoxical coherence in Tibetan monks. and said it was the brain's reflection of non-duality. In Yoga Nidra, Turiya is what watches you breathe. It's the still center of the spiral, the part of you that never sleeps, never dreams, and never dies. To know these states, not just intellectually, but experientially, is to understand the purpose of this practice. Each time you guide Nidra, you're escorting awareness through this mandala from outer wakefulness to inner silence and back again, tracing the same arc the cosmos follows every 24 hours. In our next section, we'll translate this knowledge into medicine, how deep rest recalibrates the immune system, slows aging, heals trauma, and restores coherence to mind, body, and soul. Rest is medicine. Let's talk about why rest heals. Not metaphorically, but biologically. Because when we lie down for Yoga Nidra, we're not escaping life. We're returning to the body's original blueprint for balance. In the same way that Vishnu rests on the cosmic ocean between worlds, your own physiology enters a sacred pause between activity and repair. That pause is where healing begins. We spend most of our lives in a state called sympathetic dominance. It's the constant hum of alertness that says, do more, be more, fix more. Yoga Nidra helps flip the switch. Within minutes of practice, your heart rate slows, blood pressure stabilizes, and the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest network, takes the reins. At the Chopra Center, EEG and cortisol studies found that 30 minutes of Yoga Nidra produced the same parasympathetic shift as 2 hours of sleep. It is not myth or nonsense that your yoga teacher says. That is measurable physiology. 30 minutes of Yoga Nidra can produce the same parasympathetic shift as 2 hours of conventional sleep. This is not a replacement for sleep, however. Please do not try to replace your sleep. This is in addition to. Dr. Richard Miller's clinical trials with veterans showed that consistent IRS practice, which is Yoga Nidra, reduced symptoms of anxiety, insomnia, PTSD by up to 50%. Brain scans confirmed increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with safety and perspective, and decreased activation in the amygdala, which is the alarm bell of fear, our reptilian brain. So when we say Yoga Nidra restores the nervous system, we mean it literally. You're training your body to remember what peace feels like. It's the endocrine symphony. Deep rest organizes your chemistry. As brainwaves slide into theta and delta, the hypothalamus tells the adrenals to stand down, so your cortisol falls. Meanwhile, the pineal gland releases melatonin. That's the hormone of sleep and antioxidant repair. Melatonin isn't just a pill or about getting drowsy. It regulates immune function and slows cellular aging. That's why researchers at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences called Yoga Nidra the yogic fountain of youth. And then there's oxytocin, the bonding chemical, released when the heart feels safe. After a Nidra session, participants often report tears, warmth, quiet joy. They're not being sentimental. It's neurochemistry meeting devotion, science meeting bhakti. The immune system plays a role here, and rest acts as resistance. Chronic stress suppresses natural killer cells, the body's first line of defense against infection and cancer. Studies at Banaras Hindu University showed that regular Yoga Nidra practitioners experienced a 40% increase in immune markers in 6 weeks. Why? Immunity is not built from effort. It's built from coherence. When breath, heart, and brain synchronize, the immune system hears, we're safe. And only in safety can the body heal. When we're in a constant state of fight or flight, pupils dilated, heart rate up, the body is using most of its energy to keep that fight or flight going. It is only when we shift into that rest and digest that we're safe, that our body can start to produce the chemicals and the hormones to heal itself. This is why we often call rest the most radical form of resistance. In a world that profits from your exhaustion, closing your eyes becomes a declaration of sovereignty. The brain can be rewired through stillness. Modern neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change its own structure. During Yoga Nidra, the default mode network, the circuit of self-talk, quiets, while regions for empathy and introspection light up. Over time, this reshapes how you experience identity itself. Dr. Sarah Lazar's MRI research at Harvard found that consistent meditation increased cortical thickness in areas related to attention and emotional regulation. Yoga Nidra amplifies this effect by guiding awareness through multiple brain states in a single session. Mythically, you might say that the mind becomes the lotus, its petals unfolding layer by layer as light starts to filter through. And then there's the subtle body, where science meets mystery. That part of science is just beginning to glimpse the biofield, the electromagnetic halo around every living being. Maybe we call that an aura. At UCLA's Consciousness Lab, subtle energy measurements showed that coherent heart-brain rhythm radiates up to 8 feet from the body. The yogis call it prana. The Japanese call it ki. The Chinese call it chi. The New Agers call it aura. When you rest in awareness, that field brightens measurably, but also palpably. It's why the room feels different after a good yoga class, after a good nidra class, after a sound bath. Consciousness organizes matter. So when Vishnu sleeps, the universe recalibrates. When you sleep consciously, your universe does too. Every cell re-enters harmony with the cosmic breath. You don't have to believe in chakras to feel this. You only have to remember how peace feels in the body, because peace is the signal that tells every system in your body, you can heal now. Close your eyes for a breath or two. Feel the quiet ocean under your skin. Here's the through line. Myth and scientific measurement do not need to be rivals. They're two lenses on one truth. Awareness returning to itself and rising renewed. As Yoga Nidra facilitators, our art is to translate half poetry, half physiology, to speak to the scientist and the mystic that live inside every student. In our next session, we'll turn this into craft, how to write and deliver Yoga Nidra scripts that travel this map. Body to breath, opposites to emotion, visualization to Salkalpa, so that every word is a nervous system balm and every silence is a doorway. Until then, sleep consciously, dream deliberately, and remember, every time you rest, the universe exhales with you. Namaste.